Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Forsman, and I am an AmeriCorps Program Officer with the Michigan Community Service Commission. I'd like to share a warm welcome to all of you for this session. While we don't have the opportunity to see each other in person, we're very pleased to be able to share this virtual conference space with you. Our presenters today are Anna Rose Benson and Aaron Butendorp, and I'm going to turn it over to them to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much.
All right, welcome to our presentation, Building Rapport While Being Apart, Mentoring in the Modern Age. As far as just a few housekeeping things, we have Q&A or chat. Any questions will be at the end. And then also because, as mentioned previously, we're all human and we're dealing with fun these days. We may have some technical difficulties, hopefully not. You may see a random cat in the background, but it's all in frivolity of this wonderful presentation. So thank you for attending today. All right. And just a little bit as far as our agenda, what we'll be covering. So kind of just who are we and why we're here today. What brought Anna Rose and myself together, and as far as where we are now, as far as the progress we've made, and then reality and almost hashtag into the future. So I will take it away with my introduction next. So my name is Aaron Butendorp. I am the operations specialist in the Department of Public Service with the City of Lansing. I like to call myself the Chief of Fungineering. I am not an engineer, but I really value fun. And apparently that's what the director felt needed to be instilled in our office and why he brought me on board. This is my fourth year of supervising Michigan State Community Engagement Scholars. So I first came to the City of Lansing in 2018 under the auspices, as you'll see on the slide, as an AmeriCorps Vista. So I am a proud AmeriCorps Vista alum, and I went from 17 years working in higher ed. So I have a master's in counseling, college counseling and student affairs. Love working with students, but I was slightly jealous of all the amazing work that they got to go out and do post-graduation or even during. And so I did a complete pivot at the age of 35 and served the city for a year. And then I was fortunately brought on board as a contract player, and I am now full-time with the City of Lansing. So I get to share a little bit of both worlds. So the experience of before, those transferable skills, as we like to say, with working with students. And that's what led me to working with Anna Rose.
All right, and then hello, my name is Anna Rose. I am the Student Community Engagement Scholar for the Public Service Department. So this is my fourth year at Michigan State University. I'm a marketing and Spanish major. So I'm in the Eli Broad College of Business, as well as it's called LILAC now. It's the College of Linguistics, Languages, and Cultures. And this is my third year as a Community Engagement Scholar, which I'll kind of touch on in a second. And this is my second year with the Public Service Department as a project manager / assistance to special operations, aka Aaron. So with being a senior here at Michigan State University, I have one of the privileges to have more flexibility in my roles in the community engagement scholar world. So I joined when I was a sophomore. I was just looking around for jobs, and I saw something about community engagement, and I always had a passion for giving back to the community, engaging with the community, as well as just learning a little bit more about the school I go to. So originally I'm from Illinois, and this community is completely new to me, and I really wanted to make sure I'm giving back as much as I'm taking from it, because I am getting my full bachelor's degree here. So the Community Engagement Scholar Program is something that has been run for a pretty long time now, and I have the honor to be in it for now the third year. And it is a cohort of students. It can be 10 to 15 students, and each of those students are paired to a nonprofit in Michigan. We've reached as far as Flint and Detroit, but for our second year, or not second year, but my year before this, we were all virtual. So we kind of narrowed down our scope a little bit. And I started with Erin completely online. So that's why we really wanted to focus on or emphasize the fact that these relationships and these projects can be done no matter what, as long as you're both in it to win it, and both with clear communication. And I've loved it so much that I stayed over the summer, and I'm also here for this year as well. I'll talk a little bit more about the future later in the presentation, but I find this work extremely fulfilling because I'm not only helping the community, but I'm educating myself on really, really small things that I never thought I would be able to touch in my business major or in my Spanish major. And both of these majors are definitely helping me with everything that I'm learning and transferable skills, as Erin mentioned, in the office. And I'm really excited to just explain to everyone what we do and how we're engaging the community, and how we've both been mentors to each other in ways. And especially with COVID, it's given us a lot of grace and given us a lot of opportunity to grow in ways that we never thought we would.
I'm going to jump in really briefly just to share the original reason why the City of Lansing got connected to Michigan State and the Center for Community Engaged Learning was that the Mayor Shore, in his first year of office in 2018, one of his initiatives was Serve Lansing, which is a volunteer-based opportunity for the entire community. But with that, we had community partners, and still do. And one of the first steps in that was MSU committing their community engagement scholars to working with various partners and different departments within the city. Previous to this, I was with the Department of Neighborhoods and Citizen Engagement. That's where I served my AmeriCorps term. And so I worked alongside students that were assigned to that department. And then when I shifted over to public service in the last year, I knew about this amazing opportunity and reached out and said, would you be open to having a community engagement scholar serve our department? And so fortunately, we were able to make that connection.
Yeah, and with that connection came with so much learning and growth. So we can kind of compartmentalize all of our goals into three main categories. So as you can see here, education, engagement, and outreach. So I'm going to begin with the education piece. As I mentioned, the program that I'm in is the community engagement scholars. So the first year that I was with the city, I had another scholar with me. So we were co-managing, co-mingling, and co-learning a bunch of different things about the city. Learning different lingo, we're learning different programs, we're just learning how, I guess, government really worked, especially for me. I can't speak for the other scholar, his name's Tom, but for me, I'm very in the world of stocks, accounting, target markets, and same thing with Spanish, very like linguistic space. So I really didn't have any background coming into the public service department, and I faced a lot of imposter syndrome, thinking I'm not going to be able to live up to expectations of Erin or to other people that are going to be in the office or who I'm going to be communicating with, because I wasn't that confident in my skills. But learning is a constant journey. It never stops. And that's definitely something that I did and I'm still doing right now. And Tom and I showed everything we learned in this final showcase, which was last semester. And I'm also going to be doing one again in the year 2022, talking about everything I learned, everything that I failed at, and everything that I want to do better in the future. And the another like goal part of the community engagement scholars is the UN sustainability goals. So if you don't know already, I believe it's 15 or 17 goals stated by the UN. And every day we're constantly looking at how can we educate, engage, and outreach to the community and make them smarter, because really what it comes down to is educating the public as much as possible to make correct decisions about where they live, their environment, who they're giving back to, what they're putting their money in their communities. So I'm not only educating the community of Lansing, but I'm also educating the community of my cohort and teaching them what could be in the next years. And as a community engagement scholar of their third year, I'm able to pass that on to kind of like generations of different students. So when I do graduate, there can be a predecessor that kind of knows the ropes of what I've been through and can hopefully achieve bigger goals and greater goals than I could ever.
And so then we'll kind of bring into that engagement piece. So fortunately, I had about 10 years of advising students in an online or hybrid or in person. What are those days? I don't remember. Format. So, it's about being very creative and how you meet students where they are, people where they are in general. This applies to everyone. So one of the first things I did was, okay, so let's just talk, so we met via Zoom. Let's just talk and basically like get to know each other. And, sure, there's, an agenda. What are the things that we have to cover so that we're meeting the needs of Anna Rose's program, as well as what the needs for our department are. But we can't do that without creating a rapport, getting to know, just a lot of those things. And I should also add that Michigan State did an excellent job, especially the Center for Community Engaged Learning, about putting together a informal, formal, almost kind of like a get to know you a couple of hours on a Saturday. And they delivered via Panera food to our doorstep. So that was also an excellent way for trying to bridge that gap of while we're being apart, staying connected. So one of the first things I also did when in the office, I brought my laptop around and I just kind of was like, hi, these are these two people that are serving the department for this next year. And they got to meet the director and got to see, we have two vaults on our floor because City Hall is old. It was built in the 50s, so why would you have a vault if you're not a bank? We have this mascot called Swish the Fish. They got to see Swish just hanging out in the corner with his big fish eyes. And me, our wonderful administrative assistant, Michelle, and talk to some of the engineers. And then, again, come to fruition, what we didn't realize is we would be able to someday come in person. And Anna Rose got to actually meet people in person that I'm sure she'll say, I had no idea that he sounded, like I imagined this person. I remember at one point we were asking each other, how tall are you? And realizing just the things, it was almost like having a pen pal. And so, those first couple of weeks, I really tasked the students with kind of getting a sense for their community, getting a sense of Lansing, reading the newspaper a little bit, doing some digging, and then also kind of just talking things aloud, no stupid questions, just asking and clarifying and basically kind of like a deep dive of just all things city for 3 weeks. And then we could really get into the meat and potatoes of what the project would be. And I did not mention the University of Michigan graduate students. I know she's smiling at me because as a counselor, my thing is all about making sure that I provide a holistic experience for the people that I work with, the students that I work with, and that they are consistently connected to new opportunities. And so from my previous work working with the Department of Neighborhoods, I had worked with the University of Michigan and their School of Information. We actually have an agreement with them through the City of Lansing. And so when jumping forward, it feels like time is fluid these days, but we had a group of students that served us this past summer that Anna Rose worked with closely. They were also virtual the entire time. And they were assisting us about looking at one of our key programs that is related to what we'll be talking about soon, flood prevention, our basement backup protection program. And same kind of thing where they knew nothing about our city and our issues and some of those things for our key constituents. But Anna Rose was a great conduit because she had spent the time working with me and our department and was able to also bridge that gap between being a student and a student. And hopefully see that demystify a little bit of graduate school. That was my goal too, that you can do it, period. And that maize and blue make green.
Yes, exactly. bringing to the table more than I thought I did because, again, as I mentioned, but in the beginning, the whole imposter syndrome thing, when I kind of met these graduate students, I realized, anyone can do. Oh, okay, that's a very general statement, but I had confidence in myself that maybe one day, if I wanted to go to even higher education and get in those programs, I feel confident because the work I'm doing now is preparing me so well for the future, and that's what Erin does so well naturally, is kind of prefacing, planting a seed in my brain about what I could be doing in the future, regardless of what it is. Even if I don't go to graduate school, it was an amazing experience regardless. And like she mentioned, the basement backup protection program, we call it B2P2. So if you hear me calling it that, that's what that is. Kind of assimilates with the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is outreach. So outreach is a constant part of my job, Erin's job, anyone at the office in the city hall, just talking to people and getting information out there, factual information, and information that's condensed and is easily understandable. So the Flood Prevention Task Force was a huge undertaking that Tom and I, the other scholar from last year, had to get together. So if you watch the Avengers or know the Marvel, I kind of like to think of it as we got the Avengers of each little area of professional knowledge with floods, and we got them all together in one space. And we were like, how are we going to educate the public about flooding and preventing flooding? And if they do have flooding in their basement or what have you, how can they deal with that effectively? And at first, I remember Tom and I were really scared because we didn't want to look dumb, to these professionals, that we are here and we mean business and we have a valuable insight to offer. And surprisingly, our lack of knowledge that we brought to the table was a strength because we were able to point out this doesn't make sense, because if I read that, I would have no clue what that means. I don't know that vernacular. Let's change it. Or it would be, usually I look for housekeeping or rental keeping things in this space, not usually this space. So it was a bunch of double checking ourselves, and realizing that everyone has something special to bring to the table. And it's not always about who's been in the business for long enough, who's had the most experience. It's all about perspective, which is something, again, constantly learning, constantly thinking about. And I'm going to move on so I can show you more about the educational piece and outreach. So as Erin mentioned, we did a whole get to know you, and it was super cool. So Tom's above and then I'm below. I know I don't look like that anymore. I promise it is me. But I changed my hair up a lot, and it's grown a lot. So we did a get to know the MSU community scholars. We had our little piece in the article kind of talking about us and getting to know us as human beings. And as Erin mentioned, and as we'll talk about more in the future of this presentation, we're humans first, and we have so much more to give than just turning in work and making sure that we're doing things on time and correctly. Fun to get to know Tom and Erin through their virtual time. There was just times that we would spend sometimes like 20 minutes before we actually get into what we need to talk to about how our weekends went. What Broadway shows do we like? Even things about the election, because it was a very pivotal moment in history last year with the election. And it was so nice to know that these people were here for each other, not just because we were assigned together as a partner site, but we were here as humans looking to connect through the pandemic that we're still currently in. But previously, when it was way more virtual and we were constrained to our screens, it was really nice to feel like we had friends in different areas. And like Erin mentioned, very much like a pen pal. So as I wrote here, through the community engaged learning, the scholars, Tom and Anna Rose, me and Tom, we were assigned to the City of Lansing, and we worked with Erin. We initiated various educational groups and materials for the Lansing community. Like I mentioned, the Flood Prevention Task Force. Personally, I took away, and still are learning, of course, working with different personalities. You're not always going to meet the people that you completely gel with or even understand what they're saying, because a person could be in the basement sewer business for a long time, speaking the lingo, and they know what they're talking about. And I'm coming here, I'm 21, I don't really know a lot about flooding besides it's bad and water. So really meeting people at a different level and making sure and remembering that you need to compromise, and you can't always put yourself completely in front. You have to realize that other people are not always going to be on the same level. Same thing with virtual barriers, as I mentioned. Meeting isn't always easy, and breakout rooms, and the website that we're on right now, it's not always going to be the easiest, but just realizing that people are still here to learn, still here to educate and help, and that's what matters the most, not the mic not working or not the camera not working. And then learning curves. So I know I mentioned this a lot before, but the vernacular. I didn't know what a catch basin was. And I was like, what are they talking about? And I'm just imagining this as this barrel that like catches water. So just learning things and asking those questions and feeling kind of silly, but also realizing that I'm not supposed to be a professional. Like that was the whole thing. I wasn't supposed to be, a savant at sewage. So sitting down, and Erin was completely, and she still is, of course, but she's just very approachable in the way of she is here to answer my questions. When Tom and I didn't know what was going on, she would always let us know. And it was very comforting, especially in a world of this virtual confusion.
So Anna Rose touched on so much. Engagement. How do you engage when you're not physically in person? And that was touched on during the keynote earlier today. It really, in the before times, it really was about a sense of place and that human connection. And how do we do that in a way that feels tangible? And I don't know, I think about like all the different learning styles about how people learn. So how do we kind of use those different tools so that we do feel connected while being apart? So we had our Zoom meetings on a weekly basis, and check-ins and things like that. Yes, it did lead to an in-person event, but man, it was a long time coming. Up until then, like Anna Rose said, we had some times where as we got to know each other a little bit better, we started talking about Disney Plus and WandaVision and all of our pop culture loves. And I think that's an important piece because that humanizes us. And that is a way for us to, kind of break down those barriers of we're just people and we're all going through a collective experience. And so if we can, think of that's truly community. If we can work together during that, then we can work together at helping flood, or flooding rather, learning about what we can do to prevent that. That's just one example, but all of the different things that we can do as a community that we can help each other and, be it for the city of Lansing or anywhere else. One of the things I also wanted to touch on too was when Anna Rose mentioned the election. I almost feel like we had a very special episode where we had just an all-out, like we just need to talk about during the 4 days leading up to the eventual results, that what was our experience? What were we thinking? Tom had actually been an election precinct worker, which I had done that for years and years and years, and chose to bow out for this time. And so just talking about his experience being on the front lines and just kind of teasing apart everything, because it really it impacted all of us in a very different fashion, but also at the same point, again, I think it broke down some pieces for us that we had some similar thoughts and also some different thoughts and different perspectives. And it was really helpful. And again, I feel like it built that connection. I wanted to touch on too, now that Anna Rose, so fortunately we were able to have her come on board in July and in person, and how amazing and awesome to have a person in person. But again, I feel like we had built up to this, moment. And then it was like, I want to show you everything city, because again, I go back to, I want it to be tangible. I want you to feel it, touch it, smell it, all of the things. So Anna Rose can definitely tell you that I have taken her out for what we call trash talk walks, because I feel like you need to see the city. And you need to visit our 111 parks. Well, not all of them. We've gone to 2 or 3. But seeing and being around, immersed into the city makes you feel more connected and a better citizen of your community. That's something that was instilled in me during my AmeriCorps experience, especially with our then director of Department of Neighborhoods and Citizen Engagement, Andy Crawford. She was very good about making sure that I was meeting executive directors, meeting people at the front, the admin assistants, the volunteers that constantly come out, the community partners. And so I have taken that on to then bring that forward so that our community engagement scholars have the same experience.
As I mentioned before, outreach included going to those parks and going to see those sites and having moments where we're like, we're going to walk in the cemetery today just to pick up some trash, hang out and see the, Lansing Giants, see, Potter, see
Sparrow.
Sparrow, every word escaped me, of course, at that moment.
But
exactly. It's something that, coming from out of state, I'm pretty removed from East Lansing and Lansing as a person, I think. But then once I started to work for the Public Service Department, I realized that Lansing is so much bigger than just, oh, look, there's the Capitol at the end of the street, and there's 3 giant ornaments sitting in the roundabout. It's so much more. It's so much more in depth, and there's so much history involved, which is something that I was able to find at good old Hazel Street. When Aaron talks about smells, there were smells. It's a very old building, and it's kind of a storage space if you really think about it. And we were able to go there, I think now it was 3 times, and just get a bunch of stuff. So much history, so many maps. We have blueprints, we have change orders, we have bids, we have people's clock-in hours, inner office workings. It's just everything, and it's so cool to see that it's all documented on paper. And coming from such a digital age, personally, it's just so much, and it's dusty. There's old rubber bands, and it's something that I wouldn't really get to do at a marketing agency. And that's, I think, my favorite part about working with Aaron in the Public Service Department is that it's always new. It's always something different. And that part of my job is honestly outreaching to different parts of the community constantly. So it's more than just like, hey, how are we going to prevent floods? It's, how are we going to help citizens? How are we going to document this for history, which is something that I'm really interested in. And again, I wouldn't know that I was interested unless I began this job. Kind of moving forward with digitizing. So we had a huge, and by we, I mean the City Hall had a huge website update. So it's completely rebranded. It looks amazing because of our communications manager, Natalie. And it was super fun to work from a marketing standpoint and see things that, what would I want to see change? How would I make the user experience easier? And how do we make it prettier and accessible? Accessibility is super important when it comes to outreach because not everyone reads at the same reading level as I do, as my younger sibling does. People in my grade, not everyone speaks the same language as you do, and it's really important that people have this information accessible to them regardless of their abilities of reading, writing, internet, all that good stuff. So making sure that we are not only giving information, but we're giving it in a way that the citizens who actually live in East Lansing or in Lansing can figure that out and find valid information. And outreach, so the skills I use: outreach, talking to multiple different people, multiple different departments, just sometimes just researching late at night, just seeing what do other websites have, what do other people have in their flood prevention task force. Mediation is super important, talking to other people and finding common ground. And management, managing my own time, managing my co-manager, I guess you could call him, my co-scholar, Tom, and figuring out how are we going to successfully or extend, the periods of times where we need to turn projects in, and how are we going to make sure that we're not only keeping the people in the, for example, flood prevention task force accountable, but ourselves. And communicating, when I'm sick or when I was not having maybe a good mental day, the communication is completely open between the three of us, and just between Aaron and I now. We're very transparent with each other, and that's what's really important about working with anyone, really, is coming to a space where, as we mentioned before, very big theme in our presentation, but we're all human. We're all dealing with different things. And active listening when it comes to what's going on with the website, flood prevention, or day to day, why am I late to the office? Just the listening and knowing that we're all here for each other. And at the end of the day, we're human, and we're here to not only serve the company, but help ourselves and learn something from ourselves.
So the reality, and I have to touch on that slide that Anna Rose used that in her showcase presentation last spring of the road underwater. And every single time I always see it, and it's so ominous. But I feel like, so when I started my AmeriCorps, this is just personal anecdote, Anna Rose is used to it. When I started my AmeriCorps experience with the City of Lansing, it was during the February 2018 flood of the City of Lansing. And it was part of East Lansing, part of Lansing Township was also underwater. And so I feel like it's definitely at the forefront of my mind, but also because I live in a floodplain. And many parts of Lansing and the city of East Lansing are also in that in floodplain areas and are flood prone. So a lot of what I've been trying to teach or demonstrate, model to Anna Rose, and therefore us then with our flood prevention task force, was talking to each other. Many people we're all kind of doing maybe similar things, or we're working on similar projects, but not all. Again, it goes back to that silo effect. And so bringing together all the different community players. So the land bank, our department, MSU extension, just to name a few. There were so many different, we even had the library involved, because again, their outreach is very far. So a lot of those kind of, it sounds corny to say thinking outside of the box, but really thinking about how to reach a very wide audience. And that can be even insular as far as just the, community of flood professionals. So going into the reality, what is today? Some of the things Anna Rose touched on, and we'll kind of be going back and forth a little bit in tandem here, is just talking about being adaptable and meeting people where they are. That's something that I feel like I've instilled in my former life as an advisor. I used to work with our registered nurses, and I often would just go to the hospital and meet, while they were working during their rotations, like, hey, I'm here. And I feel like that translates this with anyone, really. It's a matter of, I wouldn't be here in this role if not for what? And those are the types of questions I ask myself on a constant basis. I love working with people, and especially students at the college level. And so I love the fact that I've been able to blend the two of serving my community and working within local government. Who knew? I find it so fascinating, but also being able to consistently show new generations of people what their local community is doing for them. Talking about the people aren't perfect and needing grace. Yes. I mean, perfect example was yesterday coming back from Thanksgiving. We'll call it a break, but I mean, the meme was going around of like, how do I do my job again? And I definitely was in that category of brain fog. And Anna Rose, I feel like we're on a shorthand basis now that we get it. We understand. And it's not there, that judgment is out the window. And that's where I feel like that needs to translate across just everyone, that we're all going through this very bizarre experience of what we call life, but life is bizarre regardless if COVID were not a factor. So that's where the piece of empathy matters. Just being a listener, being open and curious and willing to learn, and also share, hey, I may not know everything, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I echo everything that you said, Aaron, and the kind of moving on to like the humor and the teachable moments. Like, again, working with Aaron for so long, we definitely have a rapport that's I really cherish. And I didn't think that that would come out of this experience, just going about my day with the partner site. I wasn't with Aaron all 3 years. I was with a different partner site. And it's really interesting to kind of see how people gel differently together. And our humor is really similar, and our humor pushes us through difficult times or confusing times when we're asking questions and making mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and just learning from those and being myself and asking questions. I know that I'm not going to be able to deliver, crazy schematics or Excel linear regressions of how we can change certain engineering topics, but I know that I can, look up how I can best do that. I can support Erin on her time when we're trying to figure out how to contact different type of scooter companies and figure out when they need to pay us. It's very sporadic in the events that we have to conquer, but when we are doing that, we constantly are teaching each other. And like the last bullet point says, be willing to go there if the moment warrants it. I think it's super important to be real and to be blunt and truthful about what's going on right now. Things with COVID have affected all aspects of my life, not only the city of Lansing. So in Michigan State, we're chatting about that. When, as Erin mentioned, she used to be an advisor. So just kind of touching back on her old days and kind of figuring out like, oh, that's why that's a certain thing is the way it is, or this is the new system, isn't this so interesting? So learning off each other constantly and laughing about it is something that we do very frequently.
And just to kind of pull things together, it's like being open to the journey. So like Anna Rose said, I didn't realize even think it was possible to continue working with Anna Rose. Tom graduated, so we talk about him in the past tense because he really did. He moved on to better pastures, if you will. But the fact that MSU and the Center for Community Engaged Learning were open to us saying, please, 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 can we continue working together? And fortunately, it wasn't just a one-sided deal. We were both apparently talking to the director and the graduate assistant and saying the same thing. And they were like, you guys are hilarious. So Anna Rose got to continue. And I'm trying to figure out new and inventive ways of keeping her post-graduation. So to be continued in that department. And I became full-time. So again, it's been a very precarious, bizarro time employment-wise. I was furloughed this last year for my old department, and fortunately got a call in April to join public service as a contract player. And I feel like I'm an actor right now. But anyways, and then in this last year, Anna Rose has gotten to see the evolution of my role going through creating a scope of work and essentially applying for the job that I was kind of then doing and fortunately making the cut, which is a very competitive process. And it was a little nail biting at times. And seeing that piece, I feel like it's that professional piece, but we're also, because we're very real with each other, we can talk about what it's like to apply for jobs, but also kind of that, like, well, what do you really think about that? And, if we could just, and when I say we, the greater we, if we could all just be a little bit more real and understand that it's okay that we don't have to be perfect, that I feel like that's where the two of us have been very fortunate, because that, it's like, okay, let me just start over. It's okay. We're in a safe space. And that's kind of what I have tried to continue to instill, be it virtual, which again, can seem like a very awkward way, but I want, however I'm working with someone, and this goes especially for Anna Rose, that I value your opinion, I value who you are, and that you have earned your seat at the table. It doesn't matter. Like you earned it just for showing up, period. So with that.
Yes, with that, thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you so much to the Michigan Community Service Commission for letting us present. This has been amazing. And I'm sharing my screen, so I currently can't see the chat, but if there's any chat questions, we're going to get to those. But our emails are above, as you can see to the right here. And if you want to learn more, you can always just go to the Lansing website and look up public service, see all the nitty gritty that we deal with. Because honestly, even in this small amount of time, we haven't even touched half of what we do on the daily basis. So we really appreciate your time. Erin, if you have any other thoughts you want to add in.
No, just echoing exactly what you said. And if there are any questions, unfortunately, I also cannot see the Q&A or any of the chat because, life. So please feel free to email either myself or both of us. Again, no stupid questions, only fun connections is what I would like to say. So thank you again for having us, and we'll turn it back over to the organizers.
Thank you so much. We really appreciated hearing from you both with your knowledge and expertise on this topic. And to our attendees, thank you so much for being part of this today. We encourage you to engage on the session page, and we do have a couple minutes left. So if there are any questions that you have, feel free to put them in the chat box. Otherwise, the next workshop session begins at 3 o'clock, and there's also a lightning round at 2:40 if you'd like to be part of that. So again, we really appreciate you being part of this today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.